live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. It's Gruesome Twosome tonight. Me and Dominic Guanzon. Dominic putting in the valiant effort in getting the show running in tip-top shape. Sincerely appreciate him. Joe's under the weather. We send him good regards. He is sick. He will hopefully be joining us next week on the show. I hope he might be broadcasted from his bed next week, because next week is Nope.
For a much better movie.
I know he's jazzed like June to see that, but trying to avoid reviews of that the best I can. I see it's gotten a lot of praise, and it doesn't seem to be, I don't want to say as thematically dense as his other movies, as Jordan Peele's other movies, but it definitely seems more straightforward. At least from some of the stuff I've been reading. I've also come across, just being on Letterboxd and stuff, a lot of Close Encounters comparisons. So I'm pretty thrilled. I'm seeing it tomorrow. So hoping for a good Thursday night crowd in beautiful Iowa. But we come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. Kind of a lean and mean show today, not just because there's only the two of us, so there won't be, fingers crossed, I don't believe there should be a Zoom-sponsored intermission break. But I cannot wait to dive into the news topic today on the show, which is about the Munsters. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying right now, I'm going to drop the bomb. I'm going to drop the hammer. Okay, I have not been reviewing movies for going on 13 years without getting in the weeds with certain things and certain production companies and certain names and producers and, doing my own research and living on Wikipedia. I got a very simple explanation for why this Rob Zombie's Munsters movie looks as bad as it does. And I discovered it after watching the trailer, reading more about it. I confess I should have done my due diligence. I could have warned us all ahead of time, but I did not, because it was news to me, but now everything makes sense. It's like cracking the Da Vinci Code over here. So I got a little bit of a bomb, and this is all public knowledge. It's just your boy has no life, and he chose to source it out.
But that's what makes you special, Steve. That's what stands this show out. It's the obscure information, and you have made an obscure show that no one watches. But that's what puts you above.
I without going into too many details, I'm going out of town this weekend, and I'm going to be at a casino. And I swear to God, I'm going to be pretty much by myself for the most time and stuff, just hanging out there all day. But I'm waiting to be at the bar, and the bartender's going to be like, "So how's your day going, sir? You know why Rob Zombie's Munsters looks like shit?" Okay, I'm going to tell you why right now.
I like triple dog dare you to go out there and actually do that. Like someone goes, "Hi," and she goes, "Okay, so why Rob Zombie's movie latest trailer looks like shit?" How's
it going today? Well, it's going pretty crappy because I finally realized why Rob Zombie's Munsters movie is going to be terrible. Okay, hear me out, dude. Don't put it past me, man. Your boy's going to be.
Are we starting with this? Are we starting with this?
No, we're not.
Okay.
That'll be the follow-up topic. This is just my long lead-in. I have the answers to why the Munsters looks as bad as it does, and I know Dom's got some opinions on the trailer. So I'm looking forward to chatting about that. But we've got a movie that honestly overperformed expectations. You know what? I'm going to come out and say this. First things first. We're not even really starting with this yet with the movie, but I'm just going to say this. Where the Crawdads thing was projected to make about $10 million this weekend, it made $17 million. Now, as much as I wish, it hasn't been a banger summer in terms of quality by any means, but movies are making money, man. These movies are making good money.
America is back.
And I am thrilled because you know what? I don't care if people are going to see Lightyear or Elvis or Where the Crawdads Sing. It's just cool to go to the theater now and see people and see a lot of people. So I'm here for that. I'm not going to poo-poo anybody's decision to go see a movie. And if you like it, I always said, who cares what I think? But it's just really nice to see people going to the movies again and these movies making a lot of money, unless your name is Lightyear. But anyway, Dominic, before we continue, I've been all over the place like space. How are you doing, man? I know it's the busy season for both of our lines of work, but how are you holding up? How are you and your wife holding up? Yeah. I still enjoy saying that.
Honestly, yeah, but between the three of us, including Joe, it's just super busy, pulling like 50-plus hour weeks on top of all the other things that we do, including this show.
Yeah.
It's just getting there, and it's the same thing that happens every year between now and then Labor Day ish, the weeks after that too. It's just busy, and that, it's par for the course. But every time it happens, it's like, oh boy. And I honestly, I blame the January slump where it's like, oh, this is nice, and then you get too used to that. It's like the weather, how it's like, guys, it gets below zero every year. We know this is going to happen. Why are we still surprised by this? But lo and behold, there we are. Unlike the UK, where it's like, oh yeah, we're melting, and we don't know, that's a legitimate complaint because they've never had that before.
Yeah, I know. I heard on the news. I heard on the news today, the news on the radio. They said that like 100 million Americans, 100 million people across the world, I guess I should say, are under like excessive heat warnings or something like that, or something of that nature. And I find it almost riotously funny that like what is it out by you guys? What is it, like 90, about 88,
80 something, yeah.
Like it is tolerably hot out here, but half, you know what I mean? Like a good portion of the world is under these excessive heat warnings, but this is the time in the Midwest when it's like, yeah, it's hot outside, but it's not like ghastly, like, you know what I mean? Throw yourself in a refrigerator heat. It's just seasonably hot right now.
Yeah.
It's seasonably muggy. It's not awful. I hate the heat. You guys know that. That's why my air conditioner is 66 right now.
Oh, damn.
I'll pay the bill. I had a friend come over here about a month ago, and she comes in and she goes, I don't even know why you have a refrigerator. Just keep your stuff out in the open. Like, yeah, I keep a 66 in here for me and the cats. But yeah, so yeah, it is. No, it's hot around a good portion of the world. And yeah, like I said, the UK's getting whacked with triple digits, and they're not used to that at all. So it's wild, but it is definitely the dawn, I would say the middle section of summer. Somehow, some way, it's almost August too. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, it's almost August. We are talking, though, today, before we get into the Munsters, which I'm chomping at the bit to talk about. We do have to clear this one like
this is the prologue to the Munsters talk.
That's exactly right. This is what it feels like. Even though I will say I do have a decent amount to say about this thing. I don't know about you, but I have a decent amount to say about this thing. It's the new movie where the Crawdads sing. And I won't go. I've already gone long-winded. My entire life is long-winded. So I'll be kind of brief in saying this, though, is that this thing, I've been making the joke, this thing is allegedly based on a supremely popular novel by Delia Owens. And I know she's getting like investigated or something, or questioned about a murder. I don't know anything about that. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Wait, like in real life?
Yeah, in real person. In real life,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
I have no idea. I don't know. It's something in Zanzibar, Zambia, I think, one of those countries, but because she's like, an environmentalist and such. But anyway, this thing apparently, this book sold like 12 million copies, and I haven't read the book, obviously, so I can't make the judgment. This is supposed to be one of the best-selling books of all time. I never heard of this damn thing until Taylor Swift brought it up.
Yep,
yeah. I think she spawned this out of thin air.
I think so.
I never heard of this damn thing. I don't even remember that. This is a distinctly titled thing where the Crawdads sing. I go grocery shopping and stuff, and I look at the book and movie section every time I go to the store. I don't recall ever seeing this thing. I gotta believe Taylor Swift spawned this thing, because your boy never heard of it for selling 12 million copies, and I never heard anybody bring it up. How about you? Did you hear about it before Taylor Swift brought it up?
Not at all, and I have a number of friends that like reading novels, fiction novels, stuff like Crawdads. I would think. I really do think the Taylor Swift bump. Because Taylor Swift she's like Oprah in that she can command, she's a personality in and of herself. She has her own orbit, and she can just command literal legions of followers, particularly teens. And now that it's been so long, now they have purchasing power. They're our age. On top of the teens, she's still recruiting into her army. But it's very powerful. But other than that, I mean, credit to Owens, the author. She's been writing memoirs since 1984, and actually now just brief glance at her Wikipedia, like she's a little controversial for her stance on poachers, which apparently that might be where the issue, the controversy there lies. But this is her first novel, so it is surprising that she would get that much press and that much attention for this movie and this book. So I honestly do have to believe that it's the Swift factor.
Yeah, I think that absolutely plays a role into it. And let me just say, it sounds backhanded, but it kind of is. I honestly would have rather listened to that Taylor Swift song for 2 hours than watch this thing. That song, Carolina, is awesome. I listened to it before I watched the movie and I really liked it. And then everybody left really early in my theater. I sat the entire end credits just to hear that song again.
Does it play twice? At the end, I know.
It plays at the end. I think a portion of it plays in the beginning, or at least the instrumental or something.
Did people leave? Wait, so people left as soon as they heard that song?
Well, I had like 10 people in my theater. Almost everybody was cleared out in like the first 2 minutes of the credits rolling, which I thought was kind of shocking.
People paid and then, hold on, maybe were they part of one group?
No, it was a lot of different groups. It was a lot of couples.
So they paid that money and left?
Well, once the end credits.
Oh, the end credits. I'm sorry.
The end
I was like,
pipey.
what?
The end credits.
The starting no, the end credits. Okay.
No, but I was surprised though, because I'm like, this is like one of the main draws of the movie is this Taylor Swift song. Like I at least want to hear it again. I love that song Carolina though. And it's funny. Everything I've heard, I don't want to stand too hard because I admittedly haven't listened to a ton of her music. Everything I've pretty much heard from Taylor Swift, I thoroughly like, especially a lot of the new stuff. I thoroughly admire her artistry and her songwriting. I really like that short film. We reviewed her short film All Too Well.
Yeah.
I really like that. I liked a lot of her folklore album recently. And this Carolina song is a damn banger, a haunting banger, but a banger no less. With that being said, I sum up where the Crawdads sing like this in my opening line of my review. I said, if you handed Nicholas Sparks a manuscript written by William Faulkner, the great Southern Gothic artist William Faulkner, if you handed Nicholas Sparks a Faulkner manuscript and told Nicholas Sparks, you got to revise this, dude. You got to make some changes to this, you'd end up with Where the Crawdads Sing. This movie lacks texture. This movie lacks, I think, a lot of personality. And I'm going to pass it off to you after I say this. The thing that really shocks me is that for how intimate it is around this girl, Kaya, the marsh girl, played by Daisy Edgar Jones, this innocent young girl who's growing up in the marshlands, who gets framed for murder of this college quarterback who she was seeing while being abandoned by her family and living in North Carolina. The shocking thing to me is that how much time this movie spends revolving around Kaya and her plight and her life. And I feel like it misses the real core of the story, or the interesting part of the story about her being on trial and what is later revealed, and the tough situation she is in with her back against the wall against the jury, and the stigma and her attitude about like, they're going to judge me either way. You kind of know what I'm saying. I don't want to give too much away, but it undercuts that and the abuse elements of it all. And it just makes it into something that feels very trite and sanitized. What say you?
Do you remember the movie The Free State of Jones, or just Free State of Jones, starring Matthew McConaughey?
McConaughey movie, yeah, vaguely, but I did see it.
So in that movie, the majority of it is obviously Matthew McConaughey's character during the Civil War, how he established the Free State of Jones, and it's a lot of racism, fighting, it just of the time Civil War. But it's intercut with the 50s, I think, jump forward. I think it starts and then cuts intermittently and then ends with Matthew McConaughey's character's descendant. And it's about like interracial marriage or something like that.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me the way you say it now.
Yeah. And, on paper, I like that story a lot. But the problem is that the jump forwards to the 50s, 1950s or wherever, it really hurts the pace of the movie, which is already kind of a dragging drama. Honestly, now that I just kind of superficially made that comparison just now, but now that I think about it, like the problems are kind of shared. The problem is that Crawdads doesn't have guns and the Civil War going for it, where it's like, okay, we have some action going here.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah. There are some social injustices. There is sexual assault in Crawdads, and there is racism in Free City Jones. So there are some deep seated issues. Don't get me wrong, but man, it just drags. And I'm all for a slow movie. Don't get me wrong. Let me say this. I'm all for a slower paced movie, which honestly could have matched with the southern drawl of the Pawn Stars, the Cajun Pawn Stars, level
that I
talk
referenced.
I'm all for that. But unfortunately, because this movie is riddled like buckshot riddled with cliches up and down. Like when the drunk abusive dad comes out of the shack, just like waddling, slapping people left and right. It's like, Jesus Christ. Okay, that's a cliche. Don't get me wrong. It obviously happens, but like, dude, what a massive cliche. And then on top of that, the trial is also a huge cliche. You've got, I love Michael Strathern.
David Strathern.
David Strathern.
David Strathern. He's so good.
I love him.
He's really good here too.
He's good here.
He's got the best scene in the movie in the closing argument.
For sure. But unfortunately, well, here's the thing. For me, like his acting is good, but unfortunately, again, it's all just this. Like every time I come back, I'm like, I could be watching To Kill a Mockingbird right now. I could be watching, something a little more compelling than this. And you're right. It's just very disjointed. Might be too harsh of a word. It just lays really flat, and it's almost like the movie mistakes flatness for brevity. And it feels like a bad romance novel has made it to the silver screen. And I obviously have not read the book. Maybe the book is really good. I can't pass judgment on it, but the translation here isn't all that great. I should say that. I went a little harsh on it at first, and it's not a horrible movie or even a really bad movie by any means. And there are some things I will praise here, but there are some the sex scenes. Jesus Christ!
The sex scenes are awful.
Awful, and I'm not a prude. I'm all for. Hey, if you
they suck. I'm clearly not a prude. Yeah. They're horrible. I
am neither a prude nor am I like, oh yeah, we want like Pornhub scenes in this movie. That justifies. No.
I could have done with just really steamy makeout scenes, but don't even do the sex.
But like they last
or cut
for
to
like
them under the
45 seconds too long, and I'm being a little, I be specific there.
They are the most sanitized sex scenes on the planet.
Dude, when you do like close-ups of like a hand grasping a hip, right? It's like, okay, I thought we'd stop this in the 90s. Like, come on, man. That's almost as bad as the sex scene from, I don't know, Enemy at the Gates. It's just like, it's bad. And it's consistency. It's a consistent, roll of bad cliche after bad cliche like that really drags this movie down. And it's like, if you had if I didn't know this was a movie and you had told me after watching the movie that this was a book, then it's like, damn, I would not want to read that book.
For sure. I totally get what you mean. You know what I will praise this movie for? Because, it's not really, I keep calling it, and I almost want to go back and amend my review. It's technically a drama. It's not all a romance movie. Romance is certainly an element to it at a couple different points. It plays like a romance, right? A lot. Like it's got
love
the
triangle,
aesthetic,
especially
the aesthetic of a romance, but it's not explicitly a romance. Having said that, though, and this is, I don't know why I do this to myself, but I watch a lot of these like Nicholas Sparks or Sparks adjacent type movies because they're usually fairly popular. And so I've seen like Fault in Their Stars, 5 Feet Apart, all these types of movies. I will say the one thing I will praise this movie for is that at least it does not make dying of a rare illness look like a no makeup day. I will give it that. But having said that, and I get kind of lip from people sometimes when I harp on this, but like this is another reason I can't really get behind these stories. And like, I can suspend disbelief to a point. But it just so happens that this girl that lives in the dilapidated house in the marshlands is the sexiest thing within city limits. Like, she's gorgeous. Even when she has to fend for herself, she's gorgeous. Like,
Yeah, Marsh Girl. Okay, don't tell me you'd hit that. Like, every single dude would want that. Like,
look, they're all looking at it like that was the best part. That quarterback, played by Harris Dickinson, when he's like interacting with her, and the guys are giving him crap. I'm like, you telling me the running back ain't gonna slide in those DMs? Like, you gotta be kidding me, man.
Either two things. Like, either make it so that the rest of the town isn't so obnoxiously like, you're ugly. Like, no, they don't say it, but they imply it. It's like, oh, she's an other. She's a Marsh Girl. She's weird, you know? Either do like tone that down, which you can't because of the plot. So I understand that.
Loathes her for no reason.
And what you should have done, not to rewrite scripts here, but like what would have made that easier to accept is that make her like more disgusting, play up the the bayou, right? Yeah.
The marsh.
Thank you. This is not Louisiana, actually. This is the Carolinas. Carolina.
It's Carolina.
Yeah,
it's
Carolina.
shot in Louisiana. Fun fact, but it's the North Carolina marshlands. Yeah. That's where it's set.
And they did a good job of this when she was a kid, but when she was an adult, she becomes this beautiful wallflower.
She becomes Daisy Edgar Jones.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, who does a good job? I want to say, for what she's given, she does a good job.
I like her
acting wise. If only the script she was given wasn't riddled with cliches. Just, like, the meet cute here is like, Jesus Christ. Okay, they're gonna exchange feathers. They're gonna fall in love. Oh, they're gonna kiss when there's a hurricane of leaves. Like, Jesus Christ. All right, whatever. But like, play up, that she is still a Marsh Girl, because I thought she like abandoned being a Marsh Girl. Early on, like in the middle of the movie. She does later, which makes sense. That's fine. That's growth. But like, dude, she's in like pretty dresses all the time. Clean hair is,
Yeah, her hair is friggin' perfect.
Come on.
She can't even afford food, and she can afford conditioner? Come on. This is the shit I can't buy in these movies. Like, this is the stuff that just infuriates me. And you know what the other crazy part is? There is never, and that other kid, that guy Tate, that Taylor John Smith, that Tate or whatever his name is, to the other character, her crush initially, they never, ever, ever have a speck of dirt on them. Like, never. Okay. Not a speck of dirt. Not a hole in their shirt.
The love triangle is supposed to be a contrast. It's like, childhood friend, later lover, Tate, very blue-collar, down-to-earth guy, contrasts with the college prep, or not college prep, but like the rich,
jock,
preppy,
the quarterback.
Is he a quarterback? I don't even know.
He's a quarterback. Yeah,
exactly. And but like, you compare, like, attitude, you can see the difference, but like aesthetically, like, the hair is perfect on both of them. Like, what?
It's mind blowing in that way. So this is why I said in the beginning, this is a movie that just, like a lot of these movies, it's not as bad as that Pure Flix. I'm sorry, Pinnacle Peak. It's not as bad as that Pinnacle Peak movie at the beginning of the year, Redeeming Love. That thing was hot trash. I'll talk about that in January when we give our worst list. I got a rant coming for that one. But it's not as bad as that, because that movie is like harmful in like a puritanical messaging way that is worse than this. But this movie lacks texture. It just lacks texture. It lacks the sort of lived-in qualities that usually make these dramas and mysteries so compelling. It doesn't feel lived in. It feels like a lot of people playing cosplay for a lot of archetypal roles. Mm-hmm. That's what, like, nothing. I don't think there's any real bad acting going on over here. I don't think it's Oscar-worthy acting by any means, but I think everybody proves to be pretty competent.
Shout out to Harris Dickinson for being a dick on camera. By being the asshole quarterback, that he had the smugness of it. So that's actually that's probably the best performance, honestly.
Yeah, he was a prick. I give him credit, man. No, he was good. He was good for what he did. I also have to admit too, I am a little biased, but I did interview that Bill Kelly who plays one of the cops in the opening scene of the movie. I did interview him on the radio. He's good too. He's a real good, like, typical Stern guy.
You can't see this, but his Wikipedia, Harris Dickinson, his Wikipedia
I'll pull it
photo up. kind of looks like a dick too. Just like this kind of blank stare, dead behind the eyes, kind of.
Almost looks like he's English too. I didn't realize
they're all English. I think.
He did. I was just gonna say he looks like he's never seen a camera in his life in that photo.
We're being really hard on this movie, It's not that horrible. It's just honestly boring. And
Yeah, that's really a good way to put it too. And you know, it's kind of strange. Like I can see some similarities too. The movie was written. Everybody's talking about Reese Witherspoon as the producer, which I get because she's huge and everything.
cool.
But like,
Yeah.
cool. Like, I'm just like, when you're a producer, you're kind of seen but not heard, even though you have a lot of input. Clearly,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think about you. I don't think about Reese Witherspoon watching this movie. I think about Reese without her spoon. Nooch. Anyway, I love making that joke. It's terrible, but the movie's written by Lucy Alabar, whose name I recognized because she wrote Beasts of the Southern Wild, the Quvenzhané Wallace movie that was nominated for Oscars. And then I don't know what happened to Quvenzhané Wallace. I hope she's all right. But Lucy Alabar's like script here. I mean, I'll get into the problems after the inexcusable break we have to take for whatever reason. But Lucy Alabar, though, she's got a lot of similarities like with this screenplay to Beasts of the Southern Wild. Have you seen that? Have you seen that movie, Beasts of Southern Wild?
No, actually, I didn't.
See, it's been 10 years since I've seen it, but like there's a lot of similarities just in location.
Yeah.
And sort of like the shooting, like the direction too, like the way it's kind of portrayed and shot.
It did look like a more interesting movie than this.
Oh, this is a way better movie than this. It's a way better movie than this, top to bottom. But yeah, like I guess what I was saying earlier before we take the break, like I don't think anybody gives a bad performance here. I don't think anybody's terribly acting or acting bad or anything like that. It's just everybody is so slighted by the script, and it goes back to Alabar. And again, it's hard to contextualize one of my primary complaints with the movie without ruining it, and I don't want to do that, even though allegedly 12 million people have read the damn book. But I will get into it the best I can after this inexplicable Zoom-sponsored intermission. We'll have to blame Giuseppe's ghost or something. I don't know why the hell we have to take this thing if it's just a gruesome twosome over here. But at any rate, we'll take the break now, and then we'll come back and continue talking about Where the Crawdads Sing. Which I do like, since we have an extra minute, I will say, I do like the significance of the title because they do explain where the title comes from in the movie or what the significance of Where the Crawdads Sing means. I don't want to give it away, but I did like that explanation. I was satisfied by that. That old Family Guy joke where it's like they say the title of the movie in the movie. Like, I was happy when that happened.
But chalk it up to yet another cliche. Again, not to be CinemaSins about this, friggin' CinemaSins, but like, but when they're like so blatant, so many, and so in your face about it, it just becomes the movie, and there's hardly anything else to really rise above that. It's hard to move past it. So we might get into more detail, but honestly, I know you are saving all of this for the Munsters. You are saving all this energy for the Munsters. So we'll take a break.
We will take a quick break, though, and then come back with some more points along with closing thoughts on Where the Crawdads Sing. It is Sleepless with Steve. Come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening. Be back in about 60 to 90 seconds right here on YouTube. We're back after the Zoom-sponsored intermission we inexplicably had to take. This is Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We are talking about Where the Crawdads Sing. Where do the Crawdads sing? I don't want to ruin it, but there is a significant part of the movie, or why that title comes into play. Yeah, and I think besides the lack of texture with this thing, as I was talking about, like how Kaya just happens to be the most attractive thing on the face of the earth, but she's like just inexcusably shunned throughout much of the marshlands and the town and everything and all that. Like, this movie, ultimately, Alabar doesn't know what story she wants to tell when writing this thing. Because think about, for a second, Distill this movie down to all its major things. It's got two timelines going on. It's got two different timelines going on to begin with. You have Kaya's trial. You have the multi-layered predicament that she faces, which I think is the most interesting thing of the movie, where she's been romantically involved with the star quarterback who's an abusive prick in the movie. But now she has to defend herself to a town that hates her guts while he's just dead out of nowhere. Then you have two different romantic interests, the quarterback and Taylor John Smith's Tate, at two different points in time. And then you have her career as an aspiring writer. Mm-hmm. All of that. Yeah. You have all of that in 2 hours. And the most interesting part, you could disagree with me. I think the most interesting part, and I'm not saying I would have liked this to be an entire courtroom drama, but her problem, like the dilemma she faces on trial, is a very fascinating one. And I almost didn't realize it completely until, like, you know, the timeline catches up with the present at the end. Right. And then you're in the court. Then both the timelines converge in the courtroom.
To the screenplay's credit, there is actually a really interesting, and I underestimated it at first, and then I got excited a little bit, and then unfortunately the execution was not great. So
it's not poorly structured; it's just overstuffed.
That's a great word, overstuffed, because that's perfect to describe this. Just because there's actually the big question of, did she do it? That is a major question of the movie, because they actually don't show. At least not right away, the death, because it's not like Columbo's situation where it's like, oh, they're innocent, oh, they're guilty, so it's just a matter of how did they get there. No, did she do it? And as the story moves on, it's like, oh, okay, there's a reason why she's doing this. But to get to all of those points that you mentioned, to actually make this a compelling movie, it's 126 minutes, 6 minutes for the credits, maybe more because of the Taylor Swift song. You got two.
No, it's actually a very quick credits. The credits are about the length of the song. I was pretty surprised, which is about 450. So I'm not gonna lie. I sat there at the end and I was like, damn, those credits were quick.
Actually, that's good, but also at the same time, that means it really is a 124 to 123 minute movie that did not need to be that long. Again, it seems like the amateur problem, me being here, the filmmaker myself, but the amateur problem of like translating book to screen and not making the proper adjustments. Again, didn't read the book, so maybe they did make a lot of adjustments, but not enough apparently, because it is overstuffed. I like that word. It perfectly describes this. There's a good movie here. There's a good story here, I'm sure. I don't have time to read the book, but unfortunately, man. The goddamn sex scenes, dude. They're brutal. Even the sexual assault scene is a cliche. Unfortunately, because like those scenes are powerful and they should be powerful. I understand why Reese Witherspoon, who is a feminist, a strong one at that, who I support, in those efforts, but like you got to do something good with it. By that I mean you have something powerful here that speaks to a lot of people. Because it's a very traumatizing and a very significant thing, but when you don't utilize it properly within the story structure, and maybe she did, but like the surrounding aesthetics, the surrounding brevity of it just isn't quite there. It just falls flat. For me, it's flat.
I completely agree, and like I'm not saying this needed to be R-rated.
No, it did not. It did not need to be R-rated.
It didn't need to be, but
this,
you're also
PG-13?
This was PG-13.
Is that perfect for it? This is perfect for that movie.
I mean, at the same time, though, it's like I almost wonder. I go back and forth. It's like and I know that like writers don't go in thinking this is going to be a hard R movie. Maybe in the back of the mind they do, but you also kind of, for some of these movies and how fussy the MPAA can be, you don't really, sometimes you're like on the line and there's a real question as to what it is. But like, there's a part of me that's almost like, though, when you're dealing with murder, when you're dealing with like, especially murder, but when you're dealing with like romance, these love triangles and stuff, and this kind of abuse, like you have a lot of heavy stuff in this movie. I almost feel like, you have to make it PG-13 because the book is so successful and you don't want to alienate audiences, especially some of Taylor Swift's audience too. Yeah. So I understand that. But like, I almost feel like in order in some ways to do a lot of this material justice, you almost had to push the envelope at least a little bit, and at least, you know, verge on that. But I mean, I get it's not a huge. I'm not holding that against.
I could have taken it or left it because it's like you could have gone more gritty. Maybe that would make the world feel a little more lived in. Maybe it would have made her a little physically dirtier to match the fact that she is a marsh girl. But they didn't need that. The problem really herein lies with just how it mistakes its long overstuffed, you know, meandering with brevity, or, you know, like, hey, we're gonna settle on this for a while. It's like, no, you didn't really need to for that long. It's fine. And honestly, like us discussing this actually makes me like the movie a little more, if only for it to be really disappointed with it, because it's like
that makes one of us.
Yeah, well, but like the kind of the twist at the end. Did you realize that was a twist at the end?
Yes, I did.
I'm like, that could have been cool, but
by that point though, you're like almost exhausted.
Yeah,
like,
oh yeah.
Like I nodded, like I remember, like I nodded, like okay, like all right, I see how this wrapped up. But by that point, the movie has long lost me.
Yep.
And its sort of sanitized depiction of real world like issues and this whole thing. You know who I did like in this thing? You know, I will say the two people I did really like in this, even though they're only there to serve Kaya. I like the black couple that owns the general store, who's played by Sterling Macer Jr. and Michael Hyatt. I liked both of them. I thought they were good, but they're not really in the movie for any other reason other than to serve Kaya.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have their own arc or anything, but I just thought they played their roles real nice. Like every time we went to the general store, I was kind of happy. I was like, okay, I get to see these people again. These people are nice.
This is the one movie, or the one type of movie, where I'll be like, CinemaSins, you got this. This is, go ahead, ding away, you son of a bitch. This is all cliches, just up and down. The ultra friendly black couple that helps the white lead, you know, it's like, well, all right, sure.
For
whatever.
reasons we have no idea why, but like, yeah, and I will. The other thing I will say, I don't want to be total negative Nancy on this thing, because it doesn't deserve. This isn't gonna. I don't think this is gonna end up on my worst of these.
No.
I don't plan for it to. I will say the movie does look, for being, it's set in North Carolina, it's shot in Louisiana, but that doesn't make like the shallow creeks, the tall grass, the sunsets, the interiors. I think it's a beautiful looking movie. I think there's a lot of good locational shots in this. I like some of the scenes that are just on the creek or the marsh, you know, when she's a young girl and she's on the boat and she meets Tate and everything, and she's going out taking the boat different places. I liked a lot of those scenes. Just from a visual standpoint alone, I think it's very attractive. But again, it also kind of contributes to the fact that it's like trying to beautify this what is ultimately a very I was like, not dirty in the sense that it's like illicit, but dirty in the sense that like, yeah, it's murder, it's like abuse. There's a lot of stuff here that's very unsavory. And I think it like tries to beautify a lot of it. And I hate movies that do that. I really, that's something in my realm that really frosts me.
Dude,
when that happens.
if this movie had the aesthetics and the feel and the atmosphere of Devil All the Time.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
This could have been really something. Maybe it didn't need to go that dark, which is a hard R dark. But like just a little more of that.
That's a miserable movie. That's a miserable movie.
But because
in terms of tone.
The opening scene is kids finding a dead body. Like that's already pretty damn dark.
Yeah.
Right? In the mud. That puts the whole thing in motion.
If it was 60% of Devil All the Time, which is honestly a really good comparison I hadn't thought of yet. All right.
40 to 50.
Cajun Pawn Stars. Okay, I'll go 45. 45% of Devil All the Time. If it's about like flirting with half of the grittiness of that movie, I think it could have been something. I really do.
I agree.
And again, I feel like I have to believe the book is at least pretty good, because this is a pretty good story. It's a pretty good story. I can believe the book is pretty damn good. You know,
I like the Gone Girl aspect of, did she actually do it? And like she has reason to now, and I'm kind of rooting for her if she did.
The open-endedness of it too is kind of impressive as well. the open-endedness of it as well. I think that's an underrated sort of quality about it, which I know is hard to bring up without spoiling. But no, again, I stand by my earlier point. Taylor Swift's song is the best part of this movie. That song, if you haven't heard it yet, Carolina by Taylor Swift, people, that song is a banger, a capital B banger. I love it, and I'm not even a diehard Taylor Swift nut over here, or Swiftie, however you want to say it. But I love that song. That's a really haunting song too. It like lingers, it stays after you hear it. I even played it on the ride home, truthfully, from the theater. Again, yeah, so I have to say that. And I think everybody does a fine acting job here. I think this is a movie that's really failed by its overstuffed writing. It's 2 out of 4 stars for me.
Yeah, that's honestly the perfect rating for it. 2 out of 4. Any lower, and I feel like you're almost insulting. You're going too harsh on this movie.
I agree.
Because honestly, Daisy Edgar-Jones has... if she was just given better material, I really think she could have done really something good with it. And she already did. She's got the resolve in her eyes. She has the ability to be isolated, and you can really feel for her and sympathize with her. Harris Dickinson, for me, stole the show with just how much of a prick he was. And he exuded all the douchiness of his character. Awesome job there. And, of course, David Strathairn, always a treat. Very cliche, but always a treat. If only this movie wasn't brought down by its cliches, its long, it's overdone runtime, and just the disappointing nature of. I wish this was a better movie. In retrospect, I am rooting for this movie. If I could time travel and root for this movie, but unfortunately, just not quite there. 2 out of 4 stars for me.
Yeah, if the acting was lousy, I would justify a 1.5 star rating. Yeah. But nobody stands out as being especially bad in this movie. I think everybody's competent. It's just they're failed by the material.
Competent to pretty good.
Competent to pretty good. Daisy Edgar-Jones, yeah, tip of the cap. No, I'd watch her. I'd watch her in other stuff. She was in the War of the Worlds series.
I want to watch that. I am a sucker. I think I have seen every rendition, including the radio play of War of the Worlds. That's one of my favorite stories of all time. I don't care how many times they remake it. I've seen the musical, the 80s like rock musical, or heard of it.
I'm surprised you haven't seen that show then.
It's newer, and so it's on Fox, right? I think, yeah.
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, it is on Fox. Yeah, she hasn't done a lot yet. She's only 24, so she's technically younger than us.
Mm-hmm. Technically, she is very much younger than us. She's younger. You're getting older, Steve.
I mean, she's 2 years younger than me. But I know she was also in that movie Fresh, which I missed, with Sebastian Stan. She was in that one too. That was a Hulu movie earlier this year. I have not seen that one though. I've heard pretty good things though. Mm-hmm. All right, here's the meat of the show now. Here's the meat of the show.
Overtime already.
No, we won't go into overtime. I'm not going to go that long-winded. All right, so Rob Zombie's The Munsters. The trailer just dropped. The reaction has been decisively mixed, to say the very least. Let's contextualize this for a minute. This is my monologue time here. When Rob Zombie announced that he was going to do a Munsters movie, I was like, okay, I'll buy it. I'll check it out. I'd like to see that. Now, you can't blame any of us for thinking. You cannot blame any of us for thinking that he could have taken this in like a Devil's Rejects direction. You couldn't blame anybody for thinking that he would make a bloody, R-rated, creepy, devilish Munsters adaptation. Hell, I thought that would be an ideal direction. Kind of like the Banana Splits movie I seem to reference quite often, more even so than the people who made it probably. I just think that the Munsters, I think that's one of the classic TV shows that, like, I could be wrong, but I don't think it has a very ardent fan base behind it. I don't think it's very beloved in a sort of cultural touchstone way.
Addams Family, yes. The Addams
Family, yes. The Addams Family, I would not make into an R-rated murder movie, or slasher movie. But the Munsters is like the goofier version. It's one of those shows that you catch on TV Land or MeTV every now and then, watch an episode, laugh, chuckle a couple times, roll your eyes, and move on with your day. I thought it could have been a good R-rated movie. Well, Rob Zombie came out pretty quickly after he announced, and he said, and I quote, "For those of you speculating, wondering, and assuming that the Munsters would be dirty, violent, and nasty, well, you are wrong. The film is rated PG." And so I was like, okay, he's a big Munsters fan. He wants to make a loyal adaptation. I can't fault the guy. We love what we love. I'm like, okay, I'll still watch it. You know, Rob Zombie, even for a PG rating, it might actually be kind of interesting. Well, then the trailer dropped. And keep in mind, I hate to worry people, but keep in mind they usually put the best stuff in the trailer. Just think about that when you watch the Munsters trailer. Yeah, it's not a promising trailer. It doesn't look like a promising production at all. I didn't expect this thing to have a $50 million budget, and Rob Zombie's made damn clear that it's nowhere close. But this thing looks cheap. It looks choppy. It looks like I don't know. I'm not an expert on the technical aspects of movies. I'm really not. But I almost think that they shot this with like a TV frame rate because it moves like an episode of the show.
I can feel that. I know what you're talking about. It does go into like the frame rates and maybe the kind of camera that they use and the lighting.
Like, I have a hell of a time explaining it, but like it's like that soap opera effect when you see on new TVs at this soap opera effect. You can't explain it, but you know it when you see it.
There are good YouTube essays that go, or like, you know, videos that go into like why movies feel like movies and why TV feels like TV, and et cetera, et cetera. And
I need to go to school and watch one. That's what I need to do. that I might make a post-it note and do because I'm legit curious. But moreover, though. So after seeing the trailer and sending it to these two gentlemen, Joe and Dom, where we had a field day during working hours talking about this thing in the group chat, I want to say this, though. I should have known this going in before this trailer even dropped. I'll tell you right now why the Munsters looks like crap. I'll tell you right now. This is a co-production between Spook Show International Films, and here's the kicker, Universal 1440 Entertainment. Now, Universal 1440 Entertainment is a subsidiary / imprint of Universal Pictures. And when the Munsters was announced, I don't recall 1440 being part of the press release. I recall Universal Pictures being part of the press release. That was deliberate. Because nerds like me know Universal 1440 Entertainment is the direct-to-video label of Universal Pictures. Now, let me give you a little bit of insight. They've only been around for about 17 short years. Here's what Universal 1440 Entertainment is known for. Such sequels as The Scorpion King 3, The Scorpion King 4, about a half dozen Jarhead and Curious George movies, Kindergarten Cop 2, Bigger, Fatter, Liar. Can't tell you the demand for that movie. Bring It On, worldwide #cheer smack. Woody Woodpecker. Death Race. Couple Death Race sequels in there too. How High 2. The sequel to the Method Man and Redman stoner comedy. Backdraft 2. The sequel to the Kurt Russell drama action movie. An Inside Man sequel.
This is the greatest fan fiction production company ever. Like,
yes.
Like if you liked a story, if you liked a really good movie, and if you for some reason you just weren't satisfied and you wanted more, but you know they just weren't ready to make a sequel, this is like fan fiction put to life, man. It's great.
That's a great way to put it. Benchwarmers 2, Breaking Balls, and a couple more for you. Undercover Brother 2.
Let me be clear. When I say fan fiction, I'm not just saying the concept of fan fiction. It's like you took an author from fanfiction.net and gave them $5 million to make a 2-hour movie. And this is Universal 1440.
This is Universal 1440. And had I known when this movie was announced, had I known Universal 1440 was behind it, I would have told everybody that's as into movies as me, or at least half into movies as me, don't bother getting excited for this thing. Now, I will say Universal 1440 does have their name on a couple of good movies. They were part of they were behind the 2 later Chucky sequels, Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky. Both pretty good, not great sequels. They were also behind the 3 later Tremor sequels, one of which is tolerable, one of which is awful. The last one is pretty good. So they have put their name on some decent stuff. My whole conspiracy with Universal 1440, and then I'll get off this for a second, we'll go fixate on the Munsters, but my whole conspiracy with Universal 1440 is this. I think how a lot of these movies come to be, I don't think a writer sits down and says they're going to make a sequel to How High or friggin' Backdraft, the best firefighter movie ever made. I don't think anybody sits down thinking they're going to write Backdraft 2. What I think happens is they pull a lot of spec scripts.
Sorry. Backdraft 2. Back to the draft. Sorry. That my head just went there.
Backdraft 2, draftier. Yeah, I think what they do is I think they pull a lot of spec scripts. I think, like, here's an example. Benchwarmers 2, Breaking Balls. One of the worst. I think that was the worst movie of 2020 that I reviewed. I think that was on my worst list, or my number one movie. I think, here's my thought behind it. Very general, oversimplified thought. I think somebody wrote a movie, a stupid baseball comedy called Breaking Balls. Universal bought it. Universal 1440 bought it. And they said, you know what? Nobody's going to buy a movie, a generic baseball comedy that looks like a major league ripoff. Let's call it Benchwarmers 2 since we own the rights. Let's call it Benchwarmers 2 and sell a few more just for the curiosity element. And maybe we can get Chris Klein on board.
It works.
What the hell?
It works.
Bigger, Fatter Liars, another one. Was anybody clamoring for a 14-year belated sequel to Bigger, Fatter Liars starring Barry Bostwick? No. I think somebody wrote a generic family kid comedy. Universal 1440 bought it and knew it would sell better, a little bit better at least, if it was related to an existing property. So yeah, Universal 1440 is the company behind the Munsters, and that's all the reason I need to know not to get excited about it. I really wish I would have done the due diligence and found that out ahead of time, because then I wouldn't even bother to been being disappointed by the trailer, which admittedly is very poor. The trailer is very poor. What say you about it?
It's man, the one good thing I have to say about this is that this is the production company that actually makes movies that are so bad it's not good, but rather makes for good content for other people. You know, it's not quite Tommy Wiseau The Room level where Tommy Wiseau is trying really hard to make something genuine, and that's why his subsequent movies are not good, because he's trying to recreate that as opposed to trying earnestly.
The swell of an ego now knows he can be as bad as his movies can be as bad as he can, and he has a legion of fans that'll follow him off a cliff. That's why he made those terrible Best Friend movies.
Exactly. And the Munsters is not that, because you don't have someone with the passion. Well, actually, you know, Rob Zombie might. So we'll see.
Rob Zombie's got passion.
He's got passion.
And the thing about it is, like, he came out, and I don't want to say he lashed out. I think that's an oversimplification.
I mean, it's social media. You're gonna look like that no matter what you do.
But you know what? Like, it's funny. Like, he didn't address the negativity surrounding it. He addressed the budget rumors.
I would, because it's like, where did you think I got 40 million?
Yeah, well, and you know what the thing too, like, because he came out and said, how the hell did everyone get the idea that the Munsters cost $40 million? He said, if you add up the budget of Halloween 2, The Lords of Salem, 31, 3 from Hell, and the Munsters, it wouldn't even add up to $30 million. Here's the thing I about Rob Zombie, and I'm a Rob Zombie defender. He's one of the only metal artists I like, number one. And I've enjoyed more movies of his than I've not. I think he's a talented director. His style's not for everybody. I don't get why he's open to the vitriol that he is, though. I think the guy is a really talented craftsman. But here's the thing. Do people realize that Rob Zombie has not had a major motion picture wide release movie in over 10 years? His last one was H2 Halloween 2. The guy has not been commercial for years. Lords of Salem was a limited theatrical and video on demand
so he's
release.
had projects, but they've just not had wide release.
31 was a one night only event. I saw that with my mother in theaters. That was a fun Thursday night. 3 from Hell, the sequel to Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses. 3 from Hell, that is in Rob Zombie's trilogy, his most successful movies to date. That was a one night only event. The guy hasn't been commercial in years. So I wasn't expecting a huge budget nor a huge release for this thing. I also find it confusing that, and I had to go back and look at this, multiple outlets months ago reported that this thing was coming to Peacock, that this thing was a Peacock production to be released in September. But Rob Zombie tweeted today and said also the movie was never going to theaters or Peacock or Paramount. It was always being made for Netflix, which is fine since it is the largest of the streaming services. Where did the Peacock news come from? Like that, we all read the same thing when it came out. All these news outlets reported that it was coming from Peacock. That wasn't a rogue Reddit rumor. That was from a lot of reputable sources in a press release.
I think the press release, someone in the press release side messed that up. Or maybe there is some kind of back deal and that was accurate information at the time. And then back deal stuff. I have no idea. But
I don't know. But that added a new wrinkle to this that doesn't make a lot of sense. Because it was revealed earlier this week that it's going to Netflix, and I sent you guys. I was like, I wonder if they offloaded it to Netflix due to the negative reception of the trailer. That's what it screamed to me. And I get that if you're Zombie, you're not going to admit that. I get that, but don't play like people were starting rumors about this thing coming to Peacock of all streaming services when that was what was being widely reported months ago. Like that was the bit of his response on social media, I'll call it that I thought was curious.
I just want to say real quick, the quality of this video is actually, the trailer is actually bad. I'm on 1080p right now, and it's still bad.
The quality has like this warbliness to it. That's like the best way I could describe it. And the sound mixing feels off too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The sound mixing is off. And I wonder, I want to say part of it is because it's in color too. And we're also used to seeing the Munsters in black and white. So I think upgrading these characters to color was always going to be a little jarring compared to how we traditionally picture them and how we've always seen them. But there's some serious weirdness going on with the videography of this thing, because this thing looks cheap. Very cheap.
There's a reason, like this trailer reminded everyone, I think, of like, oh, this is why we have cliches. This is why we have like technical cliches, why trailers are the way that they are. And I know we literally just got talking about, I got done railing on cliches, narrative cliches for When the Crawdads Sing, but like, yeah, dude, there's a reason why trailers are shot the way they're shot, why they highlight the way they highlight, they edit the way they edit, etc., etc. It's because it works. And when you don't do that, well, let me say this. When you don't do that and you just kind of meh about it, then this is what you get. Not to say that all when a trailer breaks the mold in that way, then great. I'm not, trying to clamp down on innovation here, but like, yeah, dude, this is I mean, hey, if anything, it did a good job by being bad, because now we're all talking about it. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah,
if it looked like a masterpiece, I don't know how many of us would be talking about it.
But this was not the intent. I don't think that was a very clever 4D chess kind of thing there. No,
and I mean the thing is like Rob Zombie is, if he's as big of a proclaimed fan of the show as he is, he's gonna put his all into it. And that's why, like I said, people find it very easy to bash Rob Zombie as a filmmaker. And I like the guy. I'd love to have a beer with Rob Zombie. I would love to have a beer with Rob Zombie. I find him fascinating. And again, he's also one of the only metal artists I truly enjoy. I love his musical stylings. I think he's got a ton of energy. I think he oozes passion. And I think that he has a good way of finding like these interesting actors. Like, he didn't find Sid Haig, but he gave Sid Haig some of the best roles of his life. God rest the dead. I think Sherry Moon, his wife, we all need a +1 as devoted as Sherry Moon Zombie. I've long admired her as well in her acting. The last note about this thing, because we are going to review this movie, a release date just got announced today before the show. And this is weird too. You don't hear this happening too much in 2022. It's going to be released on digital, Blu-ray, and DVD on September 27th. Then it's going to stream on Netflix, presumably in the month of October for Halloween. So I might have to task these boys. I hate to say it, but I'm telling you right now, that Tuesday, because I would like to review this the day after it comes out, I might have to task you guys to hit up a Redbox. I might have to task you boys to hit up a Redbox.
We still got some out here. It's the Midwest. We still got them.
You're going to have to make a Walgreens run for some Mike and Ike's and the Munsters.
Okay, my dad, because he just plows through content like nobody's business, he actually still goes to Redbox because I think the box is still around at a Walgreens. You're right.
That's where a lot of them
I
are.
remember passing. I have some family out in the in Yorkville, and there's it's an exurb. There's a lot of rural parts to it. And,
I used to pass it on my way home.
but there are random like family videos on a corner. It's like just a family video, and then like cornfields like almost all around it. It's hilarious. And there are red. Is it red? No, I think either Walgreens or Family Video. I don't think it makes sense for Family Video. That would hurt your business if you had a
Family
red
Video's
box.
gone. Family Video's gone too.
Yeah, you're right. So I think it was a Walgreens that like just a random ass Walgreens. It does make sense though, because we don't support internet for rural America. So it makes sense that we do have that there are red boxes out there. So that's the last bastion for it. So we'll see.
Yeah, I like I said, the areas that I've moved to, I don't have to. Because I was at a red box a few years ago to rent something like this. Oddly enough, I might have been Benchwarmers too. Truthfully, I was at I've lived now in predominantly rural areas. Granted, now in eastern Iowa, where I'm at now, like it's a fairly large city, but there's rural parts to it on the outskirts.
Yeah.
I never have to sweat. There's usually there's usually at least 5 red boxes in the area that I've lived in. There's usually at least 5 local red boxes. But I'm just letting you guys know right now that we're gonna have to might have to be making a red box run. God, if I still lived local, I'd want to have you guys over, just rent it once and then do it. But yeah, if that's how it's gonna be, that might be how it has to be.
I'd be okay with that.
Unless it comes to Vudu for $5.99, but I don't think it's going to. If it's going to come to DVD and Blu-ray,
what streaming service other than Netflix is going to touch this?
Well, I mean, Vudu will have it, to rent. Yeah. I would assume, but is it going to be a $20 price tag? Which it's probably going to be if you can only otherwise access it on DVD and Blu-ray. It's probably going to be a $20 price tag. You're probably going to have the option to buy it or rent it for $20 first before it winds up going to Netflix. I don't know. I've already thought way too much about how I'm going to watch the Munsters in September. God, am I ferociously single. But it's terrible, man. It's like an illness that I have. I'm like over here like sweating, being like, oh God,
Steve, honestly though, you have your priorities straight, my man.
Do I?
And even if it's good to not have, real talk, good to not have relationships as your number one priority at this stage in your life. You work on yourself, you get your priorities straight, and the lovers come to you, my friend. You are the beacon. You don't need to simp for other men and women out there. They come to you, and they will, and she will come.
He's a 10, but he rents Universal 1440 movies. That's where we will end things. Boy. That needs to go on a shirt. He's a 10, but he watches Universal 1440 movies. And then on the back, it's just a list of like the sequels they've made.
What a meme format that one's been.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. And that was the first time I've ever participated in it. Next week, we are reviewing Nope. Reviewing Nope. That's a movie, indeed. And I'm already sick of the film critics who are giving headlines of this just saying, yep. I'm very tired of that.
That's something I would come up with. So work harder, guys. Come on.
I'm not a big fan of puns and headlines. I'm not good at them personally. The only thing is the one I did partake in was when The Disaster Artist came out. And I said The Disaster Artist earns high marks.
That one's aggressively bad.
That one I did. I said I had to give high marks to The Disaster Artist. Jeez. That was one of my... I was like halfway through the movie and I was like, that's going to be the headline. That's going to be the headline. It's like halfway through it. But yeah, we got Nope next week. And then we got to figure out something for August 3rd because the only thing that's coming out is DC League of Super Pets.
I'm not watching that. I am absolutely not watching that.
If you and Joe want to watch it, I'll take the night off. I'll go to the local dance out here. If you guys want to review that, I'll take the night off.
Joe can watch that. I'm not watching that.
And we got to like grasp at straws. I have an idea. I don't want to reveal it yet, Maybe I'll review it in the green room. I have an idea for a movie we can review though. And I will discuss that with you guys off camera, but I do have a good idea. It is streaming now. We will talk about that off air. That's our show, though. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening. This was a good show. Miss Giuseppe, though. Hopefully he's back to talk about Jordan Peele's brand new movie. So looking forward to that.
He's got a lot to say. He's probably going to be the most outspoken.
Possibly. We'll be back next week, Wednesday evening, live and in living color on Sleepless with Steve.